What is tendering in construction? Tendering is so key because you need to assemble the right team right out of the gate if you're going to make this work. So what is the process? What should we keep in mind? And how can we stop wasting time? We're going to talk all about that in this video right here and right now. So I'm going to give you the steps to tendering and some tips from my perspective that will make this go better. And I'm going to put those in two chunks. And by the end of this video, you'll have one more tool that you can put in your tool belt. So let's go with number one, preparation of tendering documents. So the project owner or the client will prepare tender documents, and this is what they will typically include. The tender documents themselves, the request for proposal, invitation to tender, and then information outlining the project scope, specifications, requirements, terms, and conditions that your contractor or your trades must meet. The tender documents also specify the submission deadline, evaluation criteria, and any other pertinent information. So the key with this is to have a clear and concise packet that somebody can follow that will level everybody, meaning like we were talking about with bid leveling, really make sure that we're comparing apples to apples and that the information is clear so that they can properly respond. Number two, advertisement and distribution. This can go out on public notices, online portals, industry publications, or by direct invitation to pre-qualified contractors. The goal here really is to reach the widest pool of contractors that you can possibly find. Number three, in some instances, you might want to do a site visit where any of the contractors proposing can see the site, see existing conditions, and ask questions. Number four, submission of bids. By the deadline, contractors need to submit their proposal with the following information at a minimum: pricing information, technical proposals, qualifications, experience, references, and any other required documentation. Number five, the bid evaluations. This is going to be a lot like our bid leveling video where each category, any of the requirements, according to the evaluation criteria, are then ranked and scored. Or scored and ranked. but the bottom line is, when it comes to price or technical ability or experience or the team or whatever it is that you're evaluating people on for their bid, not only should they have known that ahead of time, but now you're going to evaluate according to that criteria and score them appropriately. Number six is the bidder award. And this is where you're going to award, obviously, the scope of work to a specific contractor, not just based on price or low bid, because we know low bid does not mean lowest cost. Like we talked about in these other videos, you have got to evaluate it based on, if you're going to do cost, that's fine, cost, but qualifications, experience, team, and other criteria, like we've talked about before, because if you only select the lowest bid, not only are you going to pay for that in change orders, but you are incentivizing the contractor to spend the least amount of time with the least qualified people with the least amount of effort on your project site, because ultimately they're running a business and they have to make sure that they are whole. Number seven, obviously notify the awarded contractor that they were awarded the scope of work or the project, and obviously let the other bidders know that they were not selected in a manner that is respectful and where they can get some feedback and they can understand why, and they can also be incentivized to bid with you again in the future. Ultimately, a really good tendering process should allow transparency and consistency so that all of the parties bidding are able to have a fair shot at being awarded that project. Now, here's one thing that I would never ever do. I would not waste people's time. If you already know that you are not going to select a contractor, do not invite them to bid. Even if your requirements say you have to get 3 bidders, that's just idiotic. I remember one time somebody sending me an RFP with our company and saying, we really already have this relationship with this one individual. We're going to select them, but my boss says I need to have 3 quotes. Would you go ahead and do this? And I looked through the RFP and I'm like, this would take me weeks. Why would I do this knowing that I have no chance? It is unfair and unethical to do that to contractors. So do not invite them. Do not take them through this process and this effort just to exercise them, right? Only do it if there's a real shot at them being selected. And you know what I hope we have a real shot to do, you and me, is to really connect on this channel. Like, I would love if you subscribed, because if you subscribe, that means we're consistent. That means that my proposal, these videos have met your qualifications and that you accept me as a vendor of information, right? A service provider, right? So that means you're going to award me this bid for your time with these videos. So it's kind of funny. But anyway, please go ahead and subscribe to this channel as we go on. Now I'm going to give you some tips and tricks with the tendering process. Number one, make sure you have a clearly defined project scope. This should not be super complex. It should not take hours or days to even understand what you're talking about. Make sure that you have clarity around what you're asking for, what the proposal is about, and the plans and specifications and the scope of work. Number two, highly recommend pre-qualifying trade partners or subcontractors or contractors themselves to make sure that they meet the quality requirements, the experience requirements, the safety requirements, and that they, with their teams and their company, actually have the ability to qualify for this project. If they don't, again, don't waste their time. This will ensure that you only have people bidding on your project or for that scope that are actually able to make it. Number three, when doing this, engage with these parties early and often. Make sure you develop a relationship, address their concerns, and make sure that you are kind of doing a pre-sale, at least connecting with them before this process unfolds. Number four, please don't play a political game. Again, if you're going to put these out to bid, you'd better make sure that you're being fair and that this is actually a selection process and that multiple people, multiple contractors actually have a shot. If they don't, why not just not put that specific scope out to bid, not write that RFP, and just select the contractor you wanted in the first place, right? Don't exercise people and waste their time. Number five, make sure that there's transparent communication throughout the process. If one contractor asks a question and gets an answer, make sure to distribute that to all bidders and that you have transparent communication throughout. Number six, allow sufficient time. These trade partners are busy. These contractors are busy. It takes a lot to put together a proposal, especially if it's pretty detailed. And especially if the scope of work is detailed, allow them time to put it together and to price it. Make sure you're being fair with that, even though you might be in a rush. Number seven, be clear about the bid evaluation criteria and make sure that they know what that evaluation criteria is going to be before they bid. Eight, we already talked about. Consider value, not just price. If you just do it based on price, you're going to get the worst possible deal. Nine, once you have a short list of successful bidders, you might consider negotiating with them. Is there any way that you could possibly form a better win-win, get a better price, or get more certainty around the project? That's totally doable after you receive your bids, once you've shortlisted, to negotiate and have an open conversation with your bidders. Number 10, with those who are submitting, please make sure that you've reviewed their past experience and that you're looping that into the evaluation criteria. And number 11, make sure that any bidders that are selected, that selection is compliant with any legal requirements or any other regulations with your county, your state, or the federal government, right? So a county, city, state, and federal government, whoever you're selecting, that you're legally authorized to do so based on who they are and their classification. And so that's it. That's easy. In the description below with a list of steps to follow when tendering, but I want you to remember this as we close. You can have one, maybe two failing trade partners on your site, but you cannot have three. You will tank that project if you don't have the right team. So I would spend personally as much time as is needed in this process or on this process to make sure you have the right people, the right contractor, the right team, and the right deal so that they can execute and be one of your top players, because you barely have time to babysit one failing or defaulting player. You do not have time to do this with two or three. So do not select just on lowest bid. Select on their ability to perform the job and to be a best fit with you and to deliver on expectations. I'm going to link you to a list of best practices that you can follow when doing this. I hope you're able to put it to good use and that you've enjoyed this video. On we go.